Good evening and welcome, everyone. I'm Mehrnaz Ghojeh. I'm your moderator for this session. In this session, we will touch on a number of trends occupying the rapidly growing and evolving city network landscape, and we'll explore the role of cities as both actors and actants. There's an increasing body of contemporary literature that highlights the way in which city networks are evolving. It can be argued that most city networks are not static and finite. Rather, they tend to benefit from having an agile platform of management and operation, helping them navigate through the complex governance and technical landscape of cities. This often permanent state of flux and development has given way to a range of different city network typologies. Before I introduce our panelists for this session, I'd like to leave you with three key themes and questions that I find fascinating about this topic, and I hope that throughout the rest of this session and through the presentations from our speakers, we can explore these further. The first one is networking networks. What I mean by this is how are networks connecting and coordinating with other networks while avoiding conflicts and overlaps in their mutual goals. With over 200 city networks and counting across all shapes, issues, and forms, how can cities be better informed in selecting appropriate networks? My fear is that currently the pattern demonstrates that this happens far more opportunistically than strategically. The second point I want to raise is leveraging private partnerships. Some of the new waves of city networks have made it part of their mission to strengthen public-private partnerships to ensure implementability of their initiatives. I'd like to know if city networks can facilitate a successful and nuanced model for privatizing development and socializing businesses. The final point I'd like to raise is tracking outcomes and progress. I'm interested to know how are outcomes currently being tracked and monitored across the various city networks. How can we ensure we're delivering tangible impacts for cities, but most importantly and fundamentally for their citizens? And whether this is being done through accountability, policy, regulations, or indicators. On that note, I'd like to introduce our panelists for this session, which amongst them represent 5 different city networks, ranging from being set up in the 1980s to the early 2000s, and from varying membership sizes of 90 cities to 240,000 representatives. On that note, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Pep Roig from UCLG, United Cities and Local Governments, to come and give his presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to speak in Spanish, so if you need translation. Yo estoy aquí representando ciudades y gobiernos locales unidos, que de hecho es una red de gobiernos locales, pero yo diría que nació como un movimiento hace más de 100 años. Y hace 100 años no hablábamos de redes, hablábamos de organizaciones. En aquel momento yo creo que históricamente nuestra organización ha pasado por muchas etapas, ha pasado por organización más centralizada, más descentralizada. En este momento estamos en una organización distribuida, en una organización de redes. Y como decía la presentadora, el paisaje de las redes de ciudades ha cambiado mucho. De entrada ya tenemos que analizar en la tipología que ella mencionaba que hay muchos actores en la ciudad. Quizá cuando fundamos CGLU o los precedentes de CGLU hace 100 años, la gente equiparaba ciudad a gobierno local o gobierno municipal. Ahora la ciudad es una cosa mucho más amplia. Nosotros vamos diciendo que la ciudad la co-creamos entre todos. ¿Y quiénes son estos todos? Pues estos todos son los actores principales de la ciudad. Y después vendré a los principales actores, que son los ciudadanos. Pero estos ciudadanos, que son los principales actores, se agrupan como mínimo en 3 grandes grupos. Los ciudadanos se agrupan a veces creando empresas. Hay otras veces que se agrupan creando lo que llamamos sociedad civil, organizaciones de la sociedad civil. Y después se agrupan o votan en lo que son los gobiernos locales. Por lo tanto, de entrada tenemos como 3 grandes grupos. Pero si solo fuera esto, sería bastante sencillo gobernar una ciudad. Porque después cada uno de estos grupos puede ser local, nacional o global. Con lo cual ya tenemos 3 por 3, 9. Entonces, vemos que cualquier ciudad, en cualquier momento, en este momento, ha de coordinar los intereses del sector privado local, del sector privado nacional, del sector privado global. Para ponerles un ejemplo, cómo coordinamos las operaciones de Uber o Airbnb con las operaciones de los taxis o del mercado de alquiler local. Por lo tanto, tenemos una serie de niveles distintos, de objetivos distintos. ¿Y qué papel juegan aquí los gobiernos locales? Yo estoy representando aquí una red de gobiernos locales y, por lo tanto, nuestro origen es muy claro. Yo creo que cuando se analiza la tipología de las redes de ciudades, uno ha de preguntar quién es el padre y quién es la madre. Y muchas veces hay también redes que son mixtas. Nos podemos encontrar, y hay casos, de un filántropo que crea una red que agrupa a alcaldes. A veces nos encontramos con redes que vienen de los movimientos sociales y que también se convierten, empiezan desde abajo. Podría poner el ejemplo de Slum Dwellers International, que empiezan los slums y después se convierte en una organización mundial. Por lo tanto, el paisaje es muy complejo. Yo creo que lo importante de todo esto es que al final, bueno, hay un mercado quizá, como decía la presentadora, un poco competitivo. Resulta difícil para las ciudades elegir dónde actuar. Para mí, quizá lo que yo me gustaría remarcar es que, a pesar de que hay muchos actores, cada uno hemos de encontrar nuestro sitio, y que cuando hay partenariados tenemos que saber exactamente cuál es nuestra labor. Los gobiernos locales somos gobiernos locales, las empresas son empresas y la sociedad civil es sociedad civil. Y entonces combinar estas tres cosas a veces no es fácil, pero sí que creo que en este momento, por el lado de los gobiernos locales, yo creo que nos tocan varias responsabilidades. Y entro un poco en la labor que hacemos desde CGLU. Una primera labor nuestra es estar presentes en las discusiones, en las agendas globales. No queremos dejar las grandes decisiones del mundo en manos únicamente de los gobiernos nacionales, de las Naciones Unidas o de las empresas que tienen más influencia que nosotros. Por lo tanto, ¿qué hemos hecho? Hemos unido el movimiento político a nivel global con la ayuda de muchas de las redes que están aquí para poder decir alguna cosa cuando se están discutiendo los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, cuando se está discutiendo la agenda del clima, cuando se está discutiendo la agenda urbana. Por tanto, tenemos una primera función, que es decir, no queremos gobernar el mundo, pero sí que queremos, hay un autor desgraciadamente fallecido que decía, si los alcaldes gobernaran el mundo, a mí me da mucho miedo que haya quien sea que gobierne el mundo. Yo creo que tenemos que conseguir otros tipos de gobernanza distintas. Pero sí que tenemos que estar presentes y dar nuestras ideas. ¿Por qué? Porque finalmente la implementación de muchas de estas políticas serán a nivel local. Ahora, cuando se hace el análisis a posteriori de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, todos los expertos nos dicen el 60% depende de los gobiernos locales. Y cuando digo gobiernos locales, quiero decir con todos los actores que he mencionado antes, pero es un tema que se desarrolla a nivel local. Por lo tanto, hay un momento, yo creo que tenemos que pensar que a nivel mundial yo creo que se ha desequilibrado un poco la relación entre lo local y lo global. La globalización ha desequilibrado. Tenemos que reequilibrar la sociedad, reequilibrar el territorio, reequilibrar la economía, y todo esto es un objetivo que tenemos que tener desde los gobiernos locales. Entonces, después de esto, ¿qué hacemos? Pues una vez hemos hecho el lobby y hay una serie de agendas que intentamos ver cómo las agendas locales de cada uno de los gobiernos de alguna manera son capaces de conseguir sus propios objetivos, pero también los objetivos globales. Por tanto, yo digo que las agendas globales no caen en paracaídas en un territorio, no, se encuentran con alcaldes que desde hace muchos años están aplicando políticas de clima, políticas sociales, políticas económicas, políticas de desarrollo. Por tanto, tenemos que combinar estas agendas globales con lo que está haciendo cada uno de los alcaldes, cada uno de los gobiernos. Y yo creo también que entonces nuestra labor, y en este momento es quizá la más importante, lo que estamos intentando es implementar las acciones. Y después de implementar las acciones también la presentadora pedía qué tenemos que hacer. Pues también monitoreo y evaluación de los resultados. Creo que estos son elementos clave. Pero quizá me gustaría acabar con un mensaje, y es que en este mundo que está cambiando tanto y en el que yo creo que se ponen en cuestión muchos de los modelos económicos sociales, creo que los gobiernos locales tenemos una función principal en este momento, que es reinventar la democracia local. Y este es un tema que, si lo hacemos bien, puede cambiar también los modelos a nivel global. Creo que esta es la función principal de nuestra organización en este momento, reconsiderar un poco cómo logramos a nivel local compartir los conocimientos entre todos estos actores que hemos dicho antes, cómo logramos que los actores a nivel local tengan libertad de decisión, ¿eh? Y no solo esto, sino que tengan la capacidad de acción. Muchas veces los gobiernos locales no es que necesiten solo libertad de decisión, no. Lo que necesitan es recursos y capacidad para actuar sobre los problemas. Y finalmente tenemos también, y esta es una responsabilidad que creo que compartimos todos en este momento al ver un poco cómo se están produciendo las cosas en este mundo, mucha fuerza en la transparencia y en la accountability, ¿eh? Tenemos que ser transparentes, tenemos que dar cuentas de lo que estamos haciendo, tenemos que conectar cada vez más con los ciudadanos, que al final son los que todo el mundo representamos y que queremos que al final sean los beneficiados de estos nuevos modelos de desarrollo. Muchas gracias. Almost done, ¿eh?
You did very well.
1 second left.
Oh gosh. Okay. I apologize, my Spanish is still appalling. I'd like to invite Shannon Lawrence from C40 to come to the podium. I need to find her presentation.
Thank you very much, and hi everyone. I'm Shannon Lawrence with C40. We're to build on, I think, some of the themes spoken previously by our moderator and by our close friend and sister organization from UCLG, and I think these will be built on down the road. But I will try and highlight a little bit, I think, the maybe distinct role of C40 to come to one of these first questions about, with this proliferation of city organizations, is there a unique role and space for all of us? I would argue yes, and let's see how this plays out. So C40, we are an organization focused specifically on working with the world's largest cities, so predominantly mega cities, that are working together to address climate change and manage climate risk. And this is very much C40's reason for being. Obviously, there's a bigger sustainability agenda that's tied up in this, but this is really why we exist and what we continue to focus on. Our membership now represents about 650 million people and about 25% of the global GDP. So another perhaps distinction or key element of C40's work is that we were an organization set up by mayors for mayors. We are very much continue to be a political organization engaging the mayoral leadership of our 91 member cities. And the thinking behind the structure of C40 was that cities can best learn from other cities and city leaders can best learn from other city leaders. So our reason for bringing together those political leaders is really the inspiration, sometimes the political cover and backing that they need for bold initiatives, and really the learning and best practice sharing that needs to happen at that political level. However, we don't just stop at the political level, because also we are accountable for results and actually helping cities deliver climate action on the ground. And the way we do that is also engaging the technical officials in our cities through our thematic networks. And this is the program that I lead as part of C40 in accelerating climate action by helping cities engage on particular topics around energy and buildings, transportation, urban planning, waste and water, really the biggest impact areas for climate action. You can't talk about climate change, you can't talk about urban development without having a view to adaptation and the importance of managing those climate risks. We very much work in that area as well, and do have a partnership with 100 resilient cities, and are always working to make sure we can better increase that collaboration to address this issue of common agendas, I think, between city organizations. And we also work in the area of economic development and green growth with a smaller program. So coming back to the idea of tracking progress and results, C40 has a number of KPIs for our funders. And one is really trying to demonstrate how, by bringing city officials together to learn from each other, talk to each other, interact, visit each other's cities on study tours, engage in workshops, how that is actually helping them do something more, better, or faster on the ground. My team has to track this quarterly. We report it to our funders and to our board and our steering committee. It's a really key part of what our networks do. And that happens in sort of obvious ways, with connecting city officials, sharing best practices, sharing the mistakes that they've made in this very safe space, inspiring one city to another with bold visions. That's all quite obvious. What maybe isn't so obvious is that we're able to engage our city officials in a way that they can provide free consultant advice to one another. Where you need to develop a bus rapid transit program, and one city's had challenges engaging stakeholders around that, we can bring 5 other cities to help share lessons, critique their plan, and give them feedback based on their own experiences that can help them improve what they're doing in a free and tangible way. And also, something I'll talk a bit more about in our next slides is how this power of cities coming together, working together, can really influence other actors, be that national governments, regional governments, but increasingly the private sector and the market as well, through collective action. So last year, C40 put out a report that did try to actually quantify the role of cities in helping to meet the Paris Agreement and delivering the necessary emission reductions. And we looked at the importance of doing this and taking this action within the next 4 years, noting that emissions need to peak by 2020 for us to stand a reasonable chance of avoiding catastrophic climate change. So our Deadline 2020 report was produced in partnership with ERUP. But then we looked at the fact that we can't just have a report and everyone say, yes, we're going to work to do more, and we know this is so important. We actually need to help our cities get down to work and actually plan, implement the actions that are going to enable this to be possible. So last week, 25 of the world's biggest cities, their mayors, actually signed on a commitment. Here I'm highlighting our 2050 date, but it actually is to develop and begin implementing a climate action plan in line with the Paris Agreement ambitions by 2020. So it's trying to show this power, the power that cities speaking together as a single voice and taking action together can deliver. And then also critically, it's so important for us, the sister city organizations, to be united in the work we do on the global stage. And I think we've seen huge advancements in this, really starting at COP, I would say, well, probably before that, but coming to the forefront at COP15 in Paris, and then looking at, COP21 in Paris in December of 2015, and also now just this week in Bonn, where we have new models around the Global Covenant of Mayors, a really critical, tangible demonstration about how the city organizations can form a partnership in a way that tracks and inspires our cities to act. So this is the kind of, I think, global partnership that's really showing the numbers of cities, and there were great emissions reduction quantifications as part of this, that says to national governments, we're a force to be reckoned with. You need to be doing more than we're doing, and we're doing a lot. So it's that kind of collective power that's so important. And then earlier I mentioned C40's increasing role in trying to use the power of cities to shift markets in the right direction. So this is a strategy that was actually, we came on a bit of an accident a couple of years ago when we launched our Clean Bus Declaration of Intent. There were a number of cities that we work with that said, listen, we want to buy clean bus technology, but we can't afford it. Some cities don't even have access to it. So we thought, can we aggregate the numbers of cities, show the potential and the power of that demand, demonstrate to manufacturers the market is there if you can provide what they need at the right price, and can that have an impact? London will note that they received a 10% reduction in the price of electric buses, which they attribute to this declaration, and that power of tens of thousands of market potential and demand coming together to make this sign. The next thing that we just released, it is showing up there, okay, a couple of weeks ago. So evolving from signaling an intent to buy a technology, which is also not much of a commitment, to actually now having 12 mayors who have committed to only purchase zero emission, which in this case is basically full battery electric or hydrogen buses from 2025. This is a really strong statement from a pretty globally diverse group of cities, and this is just the first tranche of this. 12 mayors committing to do this by 2025, and we'll be looking to unveil more and more cities in the year that comes, leading up to the Global Climate Action Summit next September in San Francisco. But what this highlights too is the role that not just cities need to play in delivering on this agenda. So we'll be working with our other non-state actors, which are the businesses and the private sector community, to help create the synergies between our two agendas that will enable this to be possible. So while I certainly agree with some of the moderator's first questions and the need to look at how we're avoiding conflict and duplication, how we're tracking and learning progress, I would argue that at least in my 4 or 5 years in this space, I think we've come a really long way. And I also think that a number of our cities would feel like each of us is playing a unique role in delivering on this agenda. However, there's still more to do. So it's important for us to have events like this and continue to share and figure out how we can go further together. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. I'd like to invite Mr. Rodrigo Perpétuo to come to the stage. Rodrigo is from ICLEI. He's a regional director in South America, focusing on local governments for sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Marja. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. I would speak in Portuguese, but then they said I couldn't. So Shakespeare will forgive me. I'll address you in English, not to disturb Cervantes in his own land. Well, I think many things have been said. I would like to start with greeting my colleagues in the panel and the audience. I see some friends, some colleagues. But through this leadership, through this person who inspires us all, Joseph Roig. Joseph Roig has a very important role in this movement of having cities network addressing better their challenges and helping cities to address their own challenges as well. So I would like to give you my personal recognition, and I'm sure there are thousands that comes with me and join me in that recognition to you, Joseph. Thank you very much. I'll try to be brief and give you two perspectives besides presenting ICLEI. But Shannon, thank you very much. If we changed the brand, your presentation could be my own. ICLEI and C40 are Sister Cities network. Let's see. That is it is. It's the same thing. So they address the mega cities, C40. And ICLEI, it's a more wide city network. We are globally spread with 1,500 members and different levels of governments, as Roig stressed, not only city level, but regional and local one. So I will abstain myself to present our programs, to present our guidelines of work, because I really think we as sister networks, we do basically a very similar task and through very similar channels and way of life. I will focus my speech in how we see, and we have written a report on climate smart cities. So how ICLEI sees smart city concept and this movement come through. First, I think it's very difficult to say that there is a smart city. What is intelligence? If we look at people, what is the concept of, is an athlete more intelligent than an engineer? Is a doctor more intelligent than an artist? I mean, what is intelligence? And what is city intelligence? What is being smart? It's just to use technology. So our report on climate smart cities basically gives one strong message. Intelligence has to do with quality of life, with dignity, with rights, and IT has to be on service of ethics. That's our final message on that report. So we organized that through 6 elements, key elements. The first one, and trying to address the moderator questions, is information. So intelligence is to have information, but to do what? To better draw, formulate, and implement public policies. Data is crucial to the quality of public policies. Without data, no mayor, no public servant can make good policies. So the second thing is transparency. Data is also important to inform people what you're doing. Transparency is about that, and that should be done strongly. And the third thing on data and transparency and information is that it is supposed to be a dialogue tool. Pepe talked about local democracy. So data is a crucial tool to increase and radicalize local democracy. And the aim to produce data is as well to qualify citizen participation on the local spheres of government. The fourth element is intersectoriality, transversal initiatives that will benefit in a complex way and address in a complex way the complex challenges cities face nowadays. We cannot operate in a forward way anymore, in boxes with issues. We have to operate in a complexity matrices of initiatives which communicate and collaborate with each other. The fourth one is the ethics, and I think the global marks and treats on sustainable development, on climate, on the new urban agenda, the SDGs, gives us that mark, the ethical mark that we need to drive intelligence in cities. And the last one on this is history, identity, culture. No city can be considered intelligent or smart if this city doesn't know itself, its background, its memory, its culture, and its history. So I think the cultural element is also fundamental. I'd like to say a few things on the challenges we have as cities network and the responsibility within those challenges as well. Fiji champion for climate change was addressing different sessions and speeches during Bonn. I'm coming from Bonn. And he said that he addressed this small village at Fiji with an e-ticket for buses. And they were all happy at that village. And then one citizen asked back there in the room, but Mr. Champion for Climate, it's very good to have e-tickets and technology, but bring us buses first. So this whole thing on sustainability and on intelligence comes in some regions, such as mine, Latin America, with the difficult task to have poverty as an additional component of the complexity and the task. And cities networks itself, they are horizontal organizations. So it means that hierarchy is not there or should not be there. And it depends then on the solidarity and the collaboration between them members to work well and to be able to provide the right environment to exchange experiences and to deliver this knowledge exchange and interchange as well. The mayor of Quito said that one of the best things he joins in this kind of conference is small talks with other mayors. So sometimes we seek for sophisticated tools to address city-to-city cooperation. But he said and advised me 3 minutes with a mayor, and I could grab a health center that would go to the parks to measure people blood pressure, to see if they have diabetes, and that's prevented me to spend thousands of millions of dollars on health, and I have 70,000 people per month going on those small houses to measure health in the parks. So simplifying things helps a lot as well, and this is what ICLEI is trying to do. Proximity with the cities, understanding of their own challenges and problems, and addressing with mainframes and solutions that are both at the same time simple, but also efficient. And the other thing that we have is, of course, we try to collaborate, and I think this is improving. We have the Global Task Force, which joins us all, C40, UCLG, and other big networks. And we have the Global Covenant of Mayors, which Shannon mentioned. But we are terrible. We compete a lot. We are terrible. We are far away from having a strong and true collaboration that should benefit the cities and not only ourselves as organization. And that's not only our fault. The international system way of giving money to international cooperation is very wrong. It imposes us that competition. Now the Global Covenant of Mayors is imposing us collaboration. So this is new to us, and we are happy. We are collaborating, it's working well. We should have more frameworks that impose collaborations so that we don't need imposition anymore. And a very last comment, if you allow me, moderator. We, city networks, look at our own belly a lot. We say we know the cities, we say we understand the mayors, but actually, being honest with you and to myself, we don't. We're far away to know well the cities and its complexity challenges. And we are not acting fast enough to improve that bad habit of ours. So we have a lot to do, and I'm sure we will do it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting. I've got Bernadette de Grendele from Eurocities, who's a Smart Cities project coordinator. Eurocities were founded in 1986, if I'm correct, and they've got approximately about 130 member cities within Europe. She's going to tell us a little bit about their work and some of the projects that she's working on.
So 30 years ago, there was a visionary mayor and joined another visionary mayor who thought that it was useful to share their challenges and come up with solutions. Last year, I was in Milan. We had an annual conference of Eurocities, and I was listening to our Secretary General, Annalisa Boni, who would have loved to be here today, but you have to be happy with me. And she was saying, I had a dream. I wanted to bring young minds together to think about the future of cities. So last year we had a call sent out to simple citizens, asking them about what do you think about the future of cities. So this is not what we do on an everyday basis, but why I'm saying this is that we really believe that the future is in the citizens and the cities, and why we are engaging, of course, and we are representing as a network of politicians, so mayors. We are also representing the population, and that's the most important element, the people behind, the citizens. And our strength is being a European network. So you can see that we don't limit ourselves to the European Union current borders. We collaborate amongst 35 different countries. And we also work very much with major cities, so the ones that are very active, of course, and have similar type of challenges very often. For instance, on the smart cities arena. We have very specific working groups, but we are represented by a mayor. So we have a president who is always coming from one of the cities. Now it's Ghent. And so we have this very healthy link between the political level and the technical level. We are also working with forums. So we always attract between 50 to 150 technical experts and politicians to our forums. And as you see, and I was just speaking in the Agora before, mentioning that because of this, we also don't look at smart city as a technological thing that was going to solve all of our problems. But we have a very holistic view, and it's very easy for us to bring together those technicians, experts in our forums, and to discuss cross-cutting issues, because as you see, we focus on culture, economic development, environment, knowledge society, which covers a lot of related to data management, interoperability, standards, all the areas, mobility, and social affairs. And all those areas are always chaired by one of the cities. So there is always a vice chair. So we make sure that we really don't come just with ideas, but we rely on their expertise and their ideas. So you can see here, because I was preparing for Smart Cities dimension to be presented here, that the Knowledge Society Forum has specific priority areas. So we really go in depth, for instance, discussing about the data challenges that cities have today, or the interoperability, or how do they engage really with citizens. And that is a big value for most of the cities. I'm going to pass this one because I would just like to highlight that we have really policy statements. So we are actually representing cities in Brussels towards the European institutions. And when, for instance, I was previously in D450, it's a little bit of commercial for our booth, that we have between lighthouse cities. We have sessions, and somebody from a European agency came and told me, you are really sharing. You're not just talking about sharing, but you're really actually doing that. So we are sharing experiences, we are sharing knowledge, we are really representing interests of cities, and we come up with policy statements. We dare to come with new ideas and take the risk sometimes that cities need to take today. Also, when we talk about procurement or we talk about standards, it's very important that it's concrete enough for the decision makers to understand what has to be done, but we also bring together the right stakeholders. One of the channels that is recently helping us is the Urban Agenda for the European Union. We have an active role in that. So with the Pact of Amsterdam, of course, it started that cities, so the urban voice is more heard by the European institutions, and you have a lot of areas that we cover there. I'm not going into details because most of you are probably familiar with the urban agenda, but the most important thing is that we change the space for cities, because they are heard now and working together with the national governments, they are working together with the European Commission, and Eurocities takes a very important role there. And they have to come with concrete action plan. And then we have also another role. We are working in the European Innovation Partnership, and there we focus on the business model cluster. Actually, we are leading on it. So we really work together with the businesses. We are helping the cities to come with business models that are working. And that's one of the forums. Another forum which I'm most familiar with, because myself working on this project, Sharing Cities, we are really doing peer-to-peer exchanges between cities. So we help them with examples that they can use back home. So for instance, when I go to Lisbon, we have a very good case there. It's a lighthouse city with EV charging. Then the other cities who are interested can learn from their example. And it's very important that this collaboration of lighthouse projects and answering the moderator's question, how do we network between networks? So Eurocities, myself actually, very much pushing for collaboration. We have ICLEI, we have energy cities, we have a lot of networks in these projects so that we make sure that the cities themselves work together and learn from each other on the smart cities arena. We have some replication activities that I wanted to demonstrate as very good examples that we heard, like really concrete cases on e-mobility or building retrofitting or citizen engagement that, for instance, Warsaw told us it was really interesting for them to go to Milan and hear about how they engaged with the residents of buildings because they learned like new methodologies and they can do the same at home. So this is our role, and we also, today I was approached by Nantes, who is in another lighthouse project, saying, you're really sharing, also you have a lot of webinars, opportunities that we can learn from each other. And we also focus on measurement, so the key performance indicators, and we also offer a lot of work shadowing and other opportunities for the cities. So coming to the measurement and monitoring, we do a lot helping cities also with their own monitoring and measurement practices. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess last but not least, we're going to hear from Paulo Oliveira, who's a Deputy Executive Secretary at FMP, National Front of Mayors. I just wanted to highlight, for me, it's been really exciting to be on a panel with 5 city networks with varying scales, and I think we've sort of, from the order that we've gone through, we've heard from one of the oldest ones that have been around for ages and with a vast number of cities, but also we're kind of finishing off on a very localized, so Paulo is going to tell us about his work in Brazil. Thanks very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to make my presentation in Spanish. Bueno, para mí es un honor estar aquí en este gran evento, Smart City World Congress, y tener este tema de cooperación entre ciudad. Me gustaría, antes de más nada, reforzar el comentario de Rodrigo Perpétuo por la admiración que tengo por el trabajo de CGLU y de José Roig, el Pep, ¿no? Que la UCLG, CGLU, es como la red de la red. Entonces, tener la presencia de José Roig acá es esencial. Bueno, ese proverbio africano creo que simboliza muy bien el trabajo que nosotros hacemos en la Frente Nacional do Prefeito, que es la Asociación de Alcaldes Brasileños de las grandes y medianas ciudades, pero también la cooperación ciudad a ciudad. Si quieres ir rápido, camina solo. Si quieres llegar lejos, ve acompañado. Bueno, acá un poco el retrato de mi institución, que representa las grandes ciudades de Brasil, ¿no? Brasil tiene más de 5.000 ciudades, 5.500 ciudades. 400 de ellas, que son las grandes y medianas, están en la FNP. Bueno, acá estamos con 11 alcaldes brasileños en el Congreso, ¿no? En Smart City. Un poco para saber también que la importancia, cuando hablamos de la cooperación de ciudad, tenemos que llevar en cuenta la importancia de los alcaldes participar en las agendas internacionales. Sea acá en Smart City, que es una agenda más de contenido, que ellos pueden regresar a su ciudad, reflexionar sobre lo que vieron aquí, y también de network. Sea en agendas más con un tenor más de advocacy, como la COP23. Estamos con casi 3 agendas internacionales paralelas con participación de alcaldes brasileños, ¿no? Acá, con estos 11 alcaldes brasileños aquí en Barcelona, recién llegaron también de la COP23 en Bonn, los alcaldes de Campinas y Palmas, que ahí están poniendo el posicionamiento de la ciudad brasileña en los temas de cambio climático. Y también recién tuvimos una gran agenda con 6 ciudades brasileñas, 3 alcaldes y 3 representantes de ciudad en Bruselas, que aí empieza uma nova cooperação de cidades brasileiras com cidades europeias, e que, claro, que como são grandes cidades, em grande maioria em Brasil, que trabalham na cooperação internacional, a frente sempre está acompanhando e apoiando a fortificação desta cooperação. Bueno, acá es un ejemplo de advocacy internacional. El Papa invitó 50 alcaldes de todo el mundo, un poco antes de la COP21 en París, 2015. Dejó un mensaje muy interesante para los alcaldes ahí presentes. Mira, yo he encontrado muy seguido con los líderes mundiales, los presidentes, líderes de los países, pero ellos son muy pragmáticos. Yo sé que ustedes son quienes pueden hacer el cambio de verdad en la ciudad. Entonces, por eso nos llamé los presidentes para venir al Vaticano, pero vos, ¿no? Entonces, regresan a su país, dejó un mensaje, un recado para cuando regrese a su país, intente traer los presidentes para la COP21 para que ellos puedan verdaderamente asignar el tratado, el Acuerdo de París, hagan el seguimiento. Para tener una idea de la participación activa de los alcaldes brasileños, en la agenda con el Papa, éramos la tercera delegación más grande, para un poco como están siempre muy bien representados. Eram mais grandes, as duas mais grandes eram de Itália, não, que é onde está o Vaticano, e também por todo um movimento como de redes como C40, de la participação política dos Estados Unidos, também tínhamos a delegação dos Estados Unidos muito ativa. ¿Eh? Aí a COP21, ¿eh? Também com uma participação muito ativa de alcaldes brasileiros. E, además de participar das agendas internacionais, los alcaldes brasileños buscan mucho la relación con las redes y con las agencias. Acá un ejemplo de una agenda que tuvimos los alcaldes de gran ciudad con la ONU en Brasil. La ONU invitó todas las agencias que tienen acción en Brasil, de la agencia de la ONU, para planificar sus acciones junto con ellos, ¿no? Entonces ahí una importancia de cuán relevante es la conexión de los alcaldes brasileños con las redes. Voy a dar un ejemplo de cómo esto funciona cuando hablamos del tema de cooperación ciudad-ciudad. Recién terminamos una cooperación de 3 años con Mozambique, 6 ciudades brasileñas con 8 ciudades mozambicanas, que tuvimos el apoyo, la coordinación, la parcería de CGLU en este proyecto, y también con la FNP de Mozambique, que es la Asociación Nacional de Municipios Mozambiqueños. 6 ciudades, entre ellas Belo Horizonte. En ese tiempo, Rodrigo Perpétuo, que hoy está en ICLEI, era el coordinador de Relaciones Internacionales de Belo Horizonte. Entonces, estamos aquí en una verdadera mesa de amigos, ¿no? Esta ciudad, durante estos 3 años, hicieron muchos intercambios. Técnicos iban a ciudades mozambiqueñas y las recibía también en Brasil, y pudieron hacer verdaderos cambios en las políticas públicas de Mozambique, en temas como planificación urbana, presupuesto participativo. Entonces, así, es una cooperación que llevamos con mucho cariño, porque sabemos que, de verdad, hicimos cambios en la ciudad mozambicana. Y claro, ahí un poco la metodología, la estructura de las instituciones que juntas se ponen fuerza en metodología de cooperación como esta, ¿no? Ahí siempre con la participación arriba, ahí con una reunión con alcaldes de los 2 países, abajo más una reunión entre técnicos. Entonces, claro, para que una cooperación tenga suceso entre ciudades, sabemos la importancia del alcalde poner el sello, ¿no? Saber, decir que de verdad quiere recibir o ofrecer algún soporte a otra ciudad. Entonces, tener los alcaldes adelante del proceso es la llave del suceso de la cooperación. Para terminar, pouco lo que hablaba de Bruselas. Ahí son la ciudad brasileña que ahora están empezando, así como aquí en la cooperación de Mozambique, Brasil-Mozambique, están iniciando también una cooperación con el apoyo de la Unión Europea, que me parece que vamos a tener mucho suceso. Recién se trató el último viernes, pero ahí para tener una idea de la ciudad brasileña que cooperan con cuáles ciudades europeas. Muchas gracias. Terminó 0, ¿no? Justo, ¿eh?
Okay, I think I can open it up to the floor, but I'm burning with like 2 key questions which I want to open to a few of you. I've got one, a couple of you touched on this idea of sort of data and evidence base to empower cities and mayors and in particular, and I just wonder if Rodrigo, Shannon and Bernadette, you could just comment a little bit more about how you think that process can be streamlined, what you mean specifically around data, and I know C40 particularly works on this area of data to sort of increase the evidence base and decision making. I just wonder if you can provide a quick comment on those, and then I've got a question for the rest of you.
Sure, I can start very briefly. I think C40 does have a data-driven approach where we try and support our cities in using the best data that's available to drive their climate actions. But I think we should not underestimate, for even the richest, most well-resourced cities, how challenging good data is and access to that data is. So for us, where initially I think we started a process working with the Carbon Disclosure Project and CDP, and we still are engaged in this annual reporting from cities, trying to help cities improve the quality of that data, but then also help them understand how they can use that data to drive the real climate action, in our case, that they're looking at is key. So we're actually stepping back more to a capacity building approach and then seeing if there's a role we can play in bringing in private sector organizations who have access to that data and who can be real partners in cities to help them overcome these challenges, because I just don't think it's something municipal governments can take on their own. We need these big companies who are engaged in this space to help them through this.
I was just going to ask Rodrigo to maybe comment on this as well.
Yes. Well, ICLEI has worked a lot on data, especially attached also to climate change, and many times in partnerships with C40 as well. We have one of the biggest platform on report in data, local data on emissions, which is carbon. And we are investing a lot also on the tool we have to collect the data from the cities. We believe that the cities should work in a multi-actor platform to get the right data to fulfill the global platforms that will allow us to qualify not only the local policies on climate change, but also the dialogue between local governments and national governments. Right now, in Bonn, they are writing what they call the rule book of the Paris Agreement. And our task is to recognize the local governments through evidence as a key and strategic implementators of the Paris Agreement. What that means that the international finance institutions and the national governments should, agreeing with that, provide resources, not only financial ones, but also technical ones, so that the right policies should be implemented. So data, again, as I said, and I agree again with Shannon, is crucial not only to improve the possibilities to draw public policies, but also to advocacy well in the international system.
Would you like to?
Yes, that would be great.
So, I don't know. It's better to use the same microphone. So, at EuroCities, we have well, several policy areas. So I'm not going to describe all of them, how we manage data and statistics. But one of the things that help a lot is actually storytelling. So having raw data is one thing, and another thing to understand the real challenges and try to fit into your own context. So one of the strengths is lying in that. So storytelling, going into depth, really working together in a peer-to-peer and a mentoring relationship. So that's one of the areas. And sticking just with the smart cities area, so we took very important role in city keys, which was for key performance indicators for smart cities, helping really cities to define where they want to go and how they want to be measured. And we are now just starting to work on a smart cities information system, which is one of the projects of the European Commission, which helps cities to really have better decisions on this area. So it's, in this area, it's very concrete also through projects that we are helping cities, because you were very well mentioning, resources are scarce, finances are scarce. So if projects give opportunity for cities, that's helpful, but networks have an important role to share that kind of information and support the replication process, also towards those who are not so lucky to be part of those projects.
Perfect, thank you. I've got one more question and I will open it up to the floor. I guess to Joseph and Paolo, in the different contexts that you've talked about, you touched on this issue around capacity building, and I guess both in terms of how long UCLG has been around, the number of members that you've got within the organization. I just wonder if you can touch on a few examples of successful capacity building at the local level and how that sort of played out in UCLG and how you're sort of using that for the newer networks that are joining as a way of sort of building on that momentum. And then similarly to you, how that actually has worked on a more regional and countrywide context.
In UCLG, we have you know, a kind of model, we call it peer-to-peer action learning. Okay? And in a sense, what we are using a model that is not ours. Saying, well, I like very much saying that you know, the learning models and the capacity building models have changed quite a lot. So I like one that says 70% you learn on your job, on the daily job, 20% is peer-to-peer learning, and 10% is going to more academic universities and so on. So we have this 20%. That's the peer-to-peer learning, but it's only possible when you are able to link with the action going on by a person, and it's a hard job to learn, and it's a hard job to do capacity building. So, but I think this is a key issue, and in our limited resources, what we have found that works is, you know, it's like the case in Brazil and Madagascar. You know, these type of exchanges that are based on a real need for action. Mm-hmm. Okay? If not, I think that it's very difficult at this moment to do the traditional capacity building, which there is a space for that as well. But this is not the one that I think all the networks here are more on this exchanging of experiences and exchanging of learning experiences and action experiences.
Sobre esse tema de Capacity Building, voy a hablar lo que nos pasó el lunes, que un poco ejemplifica diferente metodología, que como hablé, 11 alcaldes están aquí, pero el lunes estaban por una visita técnica, ¿no? Y en la visita técnica ellos conocieron como el 22 arroba, Barcelona Nativa, Ecoparque, algunas de las experiencias muy conocidas en Barcelona mundialmente. Pero sabemos que muchos alcaldes van a conocer y con el conocimiento de la visión va a reflexionar y puede hacer cambio y puede ser que no haga nada o puede ser que pidan para sus técnicos venir a Barcelona y conocer con más profundidad la experiencia, ¿no? Y para eso no hay una metodología cuando hablamos de lo que se pasó el lunes, ¿no? Pero cuando hablamos del proyecto que lo mostré, con cooperación con Mozambique, con esa cooperación con Ciudad Europea, ahí tenemos todo claro, un proyecto que es muy claro dónde queremos llegar, ¿no? Entonces, ahí sabemos que hay diferentes formas de cooperar, que ni siempre hay que ser con esa línea de metodología, pero sabemos que muchas veces, mismo sin la metodología, hay también ese tema de cooperación, y que, claro, llega a lo que hablamos de Capacitybuilding también, pero claro, sin tener la estructura de un proyecto.
Just wondering if there are any questions from the floor. I know we're great. Is there?
Hi, good evening. I think you can hear me without a mic.
Pause of translation.
For the translation, okay, sorry. Hi, my name is Santo from Tel Aviv-based Humor Urban Mobility. And just while on the session, I received a Twitter from the group of scientists just issued yesterday the second warning for mankind. And I'm just asking about this sense of urgency that all the networks are working with, because, you know, I think that we're at a tip point where we don't know what future is for our kids. So, excuse me for the language, well, why not the hell say to the mayors, we have to ban cars? I mean, listen, they are actually impacting our very own existence and all the other means. So I'm just asking about your sense of urgency in this regard.
Yeah, oh.
Thank you. I have a quite new one coming from Bonn as well, under the umbrella of the Global Covenant of Mayors, the mayor of Quito and Latin America chapter of it, where ICLEI and C40 and UCLG together with UN Habitat are together, also the Frente Nacional de Prefeitos. The mayor of Quito called commitment, and we are calling it call for action. And he's going to present it next 12th of December in Paris at the Macron Summit. And it is supposed to be global. It is starting regional, but it is supposed to be global. The aim is, because the mayors have not limited responsibilities, but limited capacity in terms of finance and in terms of technical resources. Just to give you a number, in Brazil, 20% of the revenues that comes from taxes goes to mayors. So 80% are especially at the national level and the regional level. So the mayors have the sense of urgency, but sometimes they don't have the means to address it properly. This call for action aims to try to recognize the mayors, not only at the NDCs, mainframes at their own countries, but also at the international financial criteria, trying to, maybe this is not the proper best word, but trying to free the mayors to depend on national approval to access international money. This is that.
Does anybody else want to comment on this?
Yes, I think for us, very much feeling the sense of urgency as well. And I would agree that I think a number of our mayors do too, especially when you're looking at also the really immediate and local impacts that are often related with air pollution, climate impacts, you know, disasters that we've seen from Mumbai to Houston this year. This is real and tangible, and they're struggling. So I think financing is definitely key, even in the well-resourced cities, as we were talking about earlier. But then also, cities play a really big part, and non-state actors play a big part, but they can't do everything. And so we're trying to drive the national government agenda too, to help raise that sense of urgency. And that's why for C40, and again, with some of the organizations here, trying to get concrete commitments from mayors that we will track and we will hold them to account in terms of what buses are you buying from 2025, because we've got to get some of these vehicles off the roads. And actually, 2025 is probably too late. So it is this idea of needing to work with businesses, of national governments, and demonstrating the real commitments and the intention behind these leading cities from all of our networks to make this change happen, because I think our mayors are not alone in feeling the pressure and the urgency.
Great. Are there any other questions from the panel? Okay. I have a lot of questions, but I might free everybody from wanting to get to other things for the evening. I guess one of the things I wanted to close on was some of the points that we've touched on today. We've talked a lot about different typologies of city networks and the role that they play in this sort of city-to-city learning. We've talked about capacity building. From a number of our panelists, we heard about the role of mayors and sort of concrete actions and accountability and how we build that through the networks. I think that's really important. The point that you've just touched on, this sense of urgency, I work quite closely with C40, and often I just find that whenever we're in a meeting, it's just that you can feel the urgency, and that I think it's built through the conversations that they're having with cities, and I think that isn't just building the sense of urgency for mayors, but it's also building the sense of urgency within the political teams, within the technical teams, and sort of having that trickle across. One of the other things that I was we touched on, but I kind of want us to walk away with, is we talk a lot about cities and the impact this has on cities, but again, I think Bernadette touched on this, but I want us to go away and think a bit more about this and how that kind of trickles down to the citizens and what role the city networks have in giving also a voice not only to cities but to the citizens. On that note, I think I want to thank our panelists one more time for their time. I felt absolutely honored to be on this panel with you guys, and thank you for you guys. Have a good evening.